Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Theravada Buddhism Series, Dhamma Talk 107. The Naked Asectic, Achela Kassapa. Once, the Buddha stayed in the bamboo grove near Rajagaha of Magadha Kingdom. King Bimbisara donated the park for the Buddha and his Sangha to use as a monastery. One morning, the Buddha put on robes, picked up an alms bowl, and went to Rajagaha city for an alms round. At that time, a naked ascetic, Achela Kassapa, from a religious group who wore nothing and practiced spirituality, approached the Buddha, exchanged pleasantries, and asked permission for some questions. The Buddha said it was a wrong place and a wrong time because they were in the city on the road for alms round. That's not a place to ask Dhamma questions and receive answer. The ascetic insisted 3 times. The Buddha still give the same answer, wrong place, wrong time. But on the 4th attempt, not only did the ascetic ask for permission, but he said he did not want to ask too much. Just a little bit, short one. Then the Buddha permitted him. And the ascetic asked, is suffering made by oneself? The Buddha said no. Is suffering made by another? The answer was no. Is suffering made by both oneself and another? The Buddha answered no. Does suffering arise by chance? Not by oneself or another? The Buddha still answered no. Then the ascetic asked, is there no suffering? The Buddha replied, it is not that there is no suffering. There is suffering. It is real. Then the ascetic said, then you do not know suffering or see suffering. And the Buddha said, it is not that I don't know or see suffering. I do know the suffering, I do see the suffering, and it exists. So it's a very short, brief question and answer. 6 questions and 6 answers. The first 4 lines were just all no, 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 no. The 5th line, no, there's suffering. And this 6th line, I know about suffering, in brief. The ascetic repeated all his questions and the corresponding Buddha's answer. And after that, he begged Buddha to teach him about suffering. And the Buddha said, Kassapa, his name is Achela Kassapa. But as he is naked, he is called the naked ascetic Achela Kassapa. So Buddha just called him Kassapa. If you say that the person who does the action experiences the result, I'll repeat again. If you say that the person who does the action experiences the result, that amounts to Eternalism. In Pali, it's called Satipatthana, Eternalism. Because it's one who exists from the beginning of whatever, beginning of time, beginning of the person, beginning of that specific person, the one who exists right from the time of the beginning, make the suffering by oneself. Because the question was, one who does the action, experience the result, the same person. That's why Buddha answered this way. Because if you ask that, the one who does and the one who experiences the result are the one and the same person, which means eternalism. And the Buddha continued, if you say the person who does the action is one and the person who experiences result is another, it amounts to annihilationism. In Pali is Theravada. What it means is, the one who made the action is one person, and the one who suffer or experience the result is another person, 2 entirely different persons. That is the meaning of what the ascetic meant in his question. So the Buddha said, no, this is annihilationism you are talking about. And the Buddha continued, said, avoiding these two extremes, the enlightened one, he didn't say I. Avoiding these two extremes, the enlightened one teaches the Dharma by the middle way. The Buddha does not teach eternalism or annihilationism, but it's called the middle way. But in the context of this sutta, the middle way is the dependent origination, paticca-samuppada. So in the sutta, it doesn't record every link of the dependent origination because it is in the middle of the city on the road and the Buddha is holding the alms bowl. Wrong time, wrong place. So the Buddha gave a very brief answer about the dependent origination. But if we are going to account for all 12 links, here it is. Conditioned by ignorance arises mental formations. Conditioned by mental formations arises resultant consciousness. Conditioned by resultant consciousness arises mind and matter. Conditioned by mind and matter arise six sense bases. Conditioned by six sense bases arise mental contact. Conditioned by mental contact arises feeling, vedana. Conditioned by feeling arises craving, tanha. Conditioned by craving arises clinging, upadana. Conditioned by clinging arises becoming, bhava, or life. In the scripture it's translated as becoming. Conditioned by becoming arises rebirth. Conditioned by rebirth arise aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. Such is the origination of the entire mass of suffering. That is the origination of suffering. The Buddha continued, with the cessation of ignorance ceases the change of origination. If you can eliminate ignorance, everything stops. Such is the cessation of the whole mass of suffering. That was the answer, Buddha's answer. Short questions, short and precise answer. It's a little longer here. I repeated all the 12 links. But at that time it is just a very precisely uttered words which pointed out what I just said. So the ascetic questions are about suffering, and his questions are actually based on the two schools of thought prevalent among the sectarian teachers during the time of Buddha, because Buddha has a 6 rivalry religious group, and they all based in one form or the other based on Eternalism and annihilationism. So this ascetic covered every angle and asked a very pointed question. The Buddha, who rejected both views or theories, presented the middle way or the dependent origination, which described the origination and cessation of suffering based on a change of cause and effect. Condition factors and conditioning factors. So that is the whole event is about that as an overview. This naked ascetic had a very high intelligence to grasp what the Buddhas taught. He praised Buddha in many different ways. In the scripture it is described in detail, and asked for higher ordination in the Buddha's presence. He wanted to be ordained. In other words, Buddha, please ordain me, give me higher ordination. Because there's a novice level, and the fully ordained level, 2 levels. Buddha replied that person in another religious order who wanted to get ordained under the Buddha's teaching requires 4 months of supervision by the Sangha. So you have to wait for 4 months. The Sangha will observe you, and if they see fit, they will give you a pass, and then you can get ordained. Then the ascetic instantly replied. He said, I would spend 4 years on probation if I'm going to be ordained. Not 4 months. You can watch me for 4 years. Still, I will do it. That's the way it's said. And the Buddhas know the ascetic minds. Of course, not right on the arms round, probably later come to the monastery, I guess. Then the ascetic got permission from the Buddha to ordain in his presence. Okay, ascetic, you may come to the monastery where I'm staying, and I'll get you ordained in my presence. to put in a very simple words. Soon after his ordination, Venerable Kassapa, because he is a Buddhist monk, Sangha now, practiced and became Arahant. So this gives you a very simple, straightforward point, knowing about what suffering is, and then about 3 points of view: eternalism, annihilationism, and the middle way. One way of saying is dependent origination. Another way of saying is the Full Noble Truth, where we practice the fourth truth, the path to the cessation of all suffering. May all of you be able to practice the path leading to the cessation of suffering, Satipatthana Vipassana, and may you be able to achieve cessation of all suffering as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.